October 14, 1943, 25,000 feet above Germany. Staff Sergeant Michael Romano crouches in a plexiglass bubble no larger than a coffin. His frozen fingers clamp the twin handles of two Browning 50 caliber machine guns. Outside, in the frigid chaos of the European sky, a Focke-Wulf 190 slips into the most lethal position in air combat. 6 o'clock, low. Romano squeezes the trigger. His tracers miss. The FW-190 doesn't. A burst of 20 mm cannon fire rips through the B-17's tail. Aluminum shreds like paper. Hydraulic fluid sprays. Somewhere forward, someone screams over the intercom. It's not the first time this has happened today. It won't be the last. Across the skies of Schweinfurt, 291 flying fortresses are on a mission to cripple German ball-bearing production. But without fighter escort, they are sitting ducks. By nightfall, 60 of them, 1 in every 5, will be lost. Another 138 will be so badly damaged they'll never fly again. Over 600 airmen are dead. The math is terrifying. At this rate, no bomber crew statistically survives 25 faith missions. Not a single one. And in the post-mission analysis that night, a grim detail emerges. The most common angle of attack? From the rear, the tail, the most heavily defended part of the aircraft, supposedly. Yet B-17 tail gunners, trained, tested, and armed to the teeth, are scoring hits on less than 8% of attacking fighters. The Luftwaffe knows. They exploit it ruthlessly. They come in low and fast from behind, ignore the tail guns, and rip the bombers apart. High-ranking commanders gather in war rooms across England. Charts, graphs, black and white gun camera footage all point to the same conclusion. The B-17's tail defense system has failed. The Flying Fortress isn't nearly as invincible as the recruiting posters promised. Engineers propose fixes, more guns, bigger guns, powered turrets. But all of it takes time. Months, materials, logistics. None of which these men have. They need a solution now, and no one has one. No one in authority, at least. But somewhere, on a hard stand in Bassingbourn Airfield, a 22-year-old tail gunner. Not an officer, not an engineer, not even a college graduate, is sketching in his logbook. His drawings are crude. They involve mirrors, scavenged parts, and an idea that violates every rule in the Army Air Force's manual. His solution is illegal, untested, and mocked by engineers as mechanically impossible. But it's about to triple-tail gun accuracy. It will change the war, and it will nearly get him court-martialed. Michael Romano was nobody special, at least not on paper. Born in Pittsburgh in 1924, he dropped out of high school at 16 to work the steel mills when his father fell ill. He didn't read engineering manuals. He repaired blast furnaces with welding wire and instinct. When war broke out, he enlisted not out of patriotism, but to escape the factory floor. The Army Air Forces slotted him into gunnery school, not for any technical skill, but because at 5'7" and 145 pounds, he was small enough to fit in the B-17's brutally cramped tail section. Training lasted 6 weeks. He learned how to clear a jam, estimate distance, and fire through numb fingers at a paper target. Then they shipped him to England. His war began at Bassingbourn Airfield, summer of 1943, and immediately he saw the problem. The tail gunner's position was an ergonomic nightmare. Essentially, a glass coffin with guns. You knelt on a bicycle seat, braced your boots against cold metal, and manhandled 84-pound Browning machine guns through a barely functional arc. You were blind to almost every angle except dead astern. Your aim relied on an ancient ring and bead sight, a glorified iron sight, designed for rifles, not aerial combat. There were no electronics, no compensations for bullet drop. No system to calculate deflection angles, where to lead a moving target. And that mattered because incoming fighters didn't sit still. They came at you from below, above, or banking in from an angle at 400 plus Metern, while your aircraft trundled along at 150. Together, your closing speed often exceeded 500 mph, faster than any gunner could react using a sight from the 19th century. Romano flew his first mission on to under August 19, 1943. They hit the Gilserian airfield in the Netherlands. He fired nearly 500 rounds. He was sure he'd scored hits. But when the gun camera footage was reviewed, every tracer flew behind its target. He missed everything. 2 bombers in his squadron didn't return. After his third mission, he didn't go to the mess hall after landing. He stayed by his aircraft, staring at the tail guns. His hands shook, not from fear, but fatigue. It took real strength to swing those guns during combat. His neck ached from craning. His knees were bruised. And worst of all, he was helpless. He couldn't hit what he couldn't see. That night, he opened his logbook and began sketching. Not because he had a solution, but because he was desperate. Something had to change. He wrote a single note at the top of the page. Problem is not the gun. Problem is the sight. He kept sketching after every mission, after every kill he failed to make. By his 5th flight, he knew the official system was broken. Veteran gunners, even elite ones from peacetime training, had hit rates barely above 12%. In combat, with adrenaline, hypoxia, and freezing temperatures, it dropped to 6 to 8%. And the Luftwaffe knew it. By the fall of 1943, German pilots had fully adapted. They came in from 6 o'clock low, shrugged off the scattered tail fire, and unleashed precise cannon bursts. The tail gun, the supposed dead man's switch of the fortress, had become an illusion. On October 4th, returning from a raid on Frankfurt, Romano had had enough. His plane came back shredded. 78 flak holes, and 2 more bombers lost. He fired over 600 rounds that mission. Hit nothing. His best friend, the tail gunner in a neighboring B-17, was killed by a Bf-109 that came straight through his field of fire. That night, something changed. Romano walked to the revetment alone, flashlight and logbook in hand. He climbed into the tail section and sat silently in the dark, surrounded by the smell of cordite and scorched metal. He flicked the flashlight off and looked out the curved plexiglass. That's when he saw it, his own reflection, distorted in the glass. It was a trick of the curve. But in that warped mirror image, he could see angles he couldn't normally aim at. The idea came fast. What if, instead of staring through that archaic ring sight, he mounted angled mirrors, letting him see more of his environment? What if he could see the tracers in real time and adjust based on where they went? But then came the real breakthrough. He didn't just need more field of view. He needed a better aim point, something like the reflector sights used in fighter planes. Illuminated reticles floating over targets, not bound by fixed metal posts. And then it clicked. What if you combined mirrors with a reflector sight? A hybrid system, one to let him see his target and another to let him see where his bullets were actually going. Live, while firing. No power required. No complex wiring. Just glass, angles, and alignment. Romano spent the entire night sketching. By dawn, he had a design for a sighting system that didn't officially exist. One that violated half a dozen regulations. One he wasn't allowed to build, but he would. Because in his mind, it was already working. October 7th, 1943. Midnight at Bassingbourn Airfield. In the dim yellow glow of the maintenance hangar, Michael Romano approaches the base sheet metal shop, holding his logbook like it's classified material. Inside, Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman, a 38-year-old Detroit mechanic with grease-stained knuckles and no patience for nonsense, eyes him suspiciously. Romano lays the sketches on the bench without saying a word. Kellerman glances over them once and mutters, "This is illegal." Romano doesn't flinch. "You're asking me to modify defensive armament without engineering approval. That's 6 violations off the top of my head." Romano just nods. "When do you fly?" Kellerman asks. "Tomorrow, Münster." Kellerman sighs. "Then we'd better work fast." They raid the aircraft boneyard behind the hangars, scavenging everything they need under cover of darkness. Plexiglass sheets from shattered canopies, curved mirrors from damaged nav systems, the crown jewel, a salvaged reflector sight from the nose of a wrecked P-47. Back in the shop, Kellerman custom builds mounting brackets from scrap aluminum and repurposed control surface joints. Romano hunches over the frame with a protractor, calculating exact angles for the mirrors. They work non-stop, barely speaking. By 4:30 a.m., the system is ready. It's ugly, crude, bolted and wired together with whatever materials were on hand. The mirrors are mounted with safety wire, shimmed with washers. The reflector sight, designed for a fighter's nose, now sits welded to the tail gun's yoke. None of it is documented. None of it is legal. But it's done. At 7:30 a.m., Knockout Dropper lifts off with Romano in the tail. No one on the crew knows what he's done. Over Germany at 10:15 a.m., a Bf-109 slides into attack position. 6 o'clock low, closing fast. Romano grips the guns and looks through the new sight. The illuminated reticle hovers over the target, clean and steady. In his periphery, the mirrors show him where his guns are actually pointing. He fires. The tracers arc behind the fighter, too far back. He adjusts instantly, leads the target using the reticle, and fires again. This time, the tracers and the enemy converge. The Bf-109's engine explodes in flame. The fighter inverts, spirals down, trailing smoke. Romano stares at the empty sky. It worked? They land at 1:40 p.m. with 1 confirmed kill. It's Romano's first. Word spreads fast. Cheers erupt on the flight line. But 20 minutes later, celebration turns to confrontation. During routine post-flight checks, Crew Chief Master Sergeant Donald Pierce discovers the unauthorized modification. He alerts Captain Richard Voss, the squadron armament officer, who arrives furious. "Sergeant Romano," he barks, "would you care to explain the unauthorized equipment installed in your gun position?" Romano replies calmly, "Sir, I installed an improved sighting system." "You installed what?" Voss explodes. "Do you understand how many regulations this violates? Technical Order 0122-EG2 specifically forbids unauthorized modifications to armament." Romano tries to explain, "Sir, the system works." But Voss cuts him off. "I don't care if you shot down the entire Luftwaffe. That equipment is not standard. It hasn't been tested. It hasn't been approved. Remove it immediately or face court-martial." Just then, Lieutenant James Holbrook, Romano's pilot, steps forward. "Captain, my tail gunner got his first kill today using that system." "Maybe we should—" "Your opinion is noted, Lieutenant," Voss snaps. "The modification will be removed." That's final. But by mess hall, the whole base knows. Gunners surround Romano, asking rapid-fire questions. What's the field of view? How hard is it to install? Can it be copied? But the engineering staff? They're panicked. Captain Theodore Morrison, the group's assistant armament officer, calls an emergency meeting. "We have a discipline issue," he begins. "A sergeant has installed unauthorized equipment using scavenged parts. If this spreads, we lose control of airworthiness. We lose control of safety." But not everyone agrees. Major William Calhoun, the group's operations officer, stands up. "With respect, sir, tail gunners are averaging 8% hit rates. Romano shot down a fighter. If there's a chance this helps, we have to test it." Morrison protests. "1 kill proves nothing." Calhoun doesn't budge. "Then let's test it. 3 missions. With cameras. If it works, we talk about making it standard. If it doesn't, tear it out and court-martial him." At 8 p.m., the argument lands on the desk of Colonel Stanley Ray, the group's commanding officer. A World War I vet with a reputation for discipline and brutal pragmatism, Ray listens without speaking. Then he asks, "How many bombers did we lose last week?" 17, sir, Morrison replies. "And how many enemy fighters did our tail gunners shoot down?" 3, Ray nods. "So, 17 bombers lost, 680 men, and 3 fighters down. If this modification has a chance of improving those numbers, we're not removing it." Ray stands. "Sergeant Romano will fly the next 3 missions with his system intact. Gun cameras will record every engagement. If it improves hit rates measurably, we proceed. If not, he'll be disciplined." Meeting adjourned. "And someone get me a set of those damn mirror drawings." October 12, 1943. Bremen. The first test begins. Romano boards. Knockout dropper with the mirror reflector sight system fully intact. 2 gun cameras, one mounted on the yoke, one fixed in the tail bubble, are locked and loaded. Every second of combat will be recorded. No more anecdotes. No more debates. The data will speak. The target is a submarine facility along the German coast. The 8th Air Force dispatches 236 B-17s. The Luftwaffe counters with over 250 fighters. At 11:23 a.m., the first engagement begins. A Focke-Wulf 190 dives from 7 o'clock high. Romano tracks the fighter through the reticle. In his peripheral vision, the mirrors show exactly where his guns are pointing. He fires a 4-second burst, and the mirrors reflect his tracers curving behind the target. He adjusts immediately. Fires again. This time, the tracer path overlaps the reticle. The FW-190's wing root ignites. The fighter flips and dives, smoke trailing. 24 minutes later, a Bf-109 slips into the classic tail attack position. 6 o'clock low. Romano centers it in the reticle, glances at the mirrors, corrects, and opens fire. The canopy explodes. The fighter rolls inverted and disappears. Romano lands with 2 confirmed kills and 1 probable. Total rounds fired, 380. That's 190 rounds per kill. For context, the group's average is over 2,800 rounds per confirmed kill. His results are not just better, they're staggering. The engineering staff watches the footage in silence. Romano's tracers correct midstream. His aim walks directly onto targets. Even Captain Morrison, the engineer who threatened him with court-martial, says quietly, "It works." But Morrison isn't ready to roll it out. "We need proper engineering diagrams, standardized brackets, testing protocols, authorization from 8th Air Force." Colonel Ray doesn't flinch. "We don't have time for red tape." Ray turns to Technical Sergeant Kellerman. "How many can you build per day?" Kellerman thinks. "With help?" 4, Ray nods. "Start now. Every tail gunner in this group gets 1 in 2 weeks. The test has ended. The results are clear. And the quiet revolution in bomber defense has begun. 1 mirror at a time. What follows is a production effort that would horrify any military procurement office. In a corner of the Bassingbourn maintenance hangar, Technical Sergeant Frank Kellerman and his crew establish a shadow manufacturing line. They cannibalize parts from wrecked fighters, scrap piles, and anything that isn't nailed down. Reflector sights come from written-off P-47s. Curved mirrors are pulled from navigation assemblies. Brackets are cut and bent from salvaged aluminum sheet. No blueprints, no testing protocols, just speed, urgency, and desperate innovation. By October 20th, 18 bombers in the 91st Bomb Group are flying combat missions with the mirror reflector sight installed. The results are immediate and undeniable. On the Duran mission, tail gunners with Romano's setup engage 47 attacking fighters. They shoot down 11. That's a 23.4% hit rate, nearly triple the group's prior average. November 3rd, Wilhelmshaven. 16 kills. November 5th, Gelsenkirchen. 13 more. Hit rates across missions hover between 21 and 24%. The mathematical impact is impossible to ignore. Luftwaffe pilots, once confident in the B-17's weak rear defenses, now face sustained, accurate return fire. Their favored tactic, rear quarter attacks, is suddenly lethal. German after-action reports start using a new phrase. Tail guns now demonstrate unacceptable risk. Major Hans Joachim Jabs, a Luftwaffe ace temporarily assigned to day fighter duty, notes in his combat diary. American tail gunners now fire, as though equipped with computing gun sights. Attacks from the rear quadrant must be reconsidered. The effect is strategic. The Luftwaffe begins shifting its attack patterns, favoring head-on passes that are riskier for pilots but necessary to avoid the tail. For the first time since the bombing campaign began, the enemy adapts in fear. Word spreads to headquarters. On November 18th, Brigadier General Frederick Castle, commander of the 4th Bombardment Wing, arrives unannounced at Bassingbourn. He inspects the installation himself, watches the gun camera footage, interviews Romano in person. "How did you know this would work?" Castle asks. Romano shrugs. "I didn't, sir." "But I knew what we had didn't," Castle smiles. Sometimes that's all the justification you need. By the end of November, group-wide rollout begins. Romano's once illegal sighting system is no longer contraband. It's now doctrine. By December 1943, the mirror reflector sight system is no longer a quiet experiment or a rule-breaking hack. It's a battlefield necessity. Over 200 B-17s across multiple bomb groups are now flying with Romano's design, and the impact is staggering. Post-mission analysis confirms it. Tail attack losses drop by over 35% in aircraft equipped with the modification. Survival odds climb, morale improves. For bomber crews, it feels like a miracle. One built not in a factory, but in a freezing hangar, by a 22-year-old who refused to accept bad equipment as inevitable. When the Cheyenne tail turret rolls out in early 1944, it features a professionally engineered version of Romano's hybrid sight, complete with a factory-installed N8 reflector positioned exactly where Romano had first bolted his salvaged one. His idea, once condemned as dangerous and unauthorized, is now part of official U.S. Army Air Force's doctrine. Romano continues flying until February 1944. He finishes with 7 confirmed kills and 4 probables, exceptional for a tail gunner. But numbers don't capture the ripple effect of what he did. His innovation spreads to B-24 crews, is tested in Italy, and influences tail gun systems for years to come. During Big Week, his aircraft takes flak over Leipzig and crash lands in Belgium. He survives, is captured, and spends the rest of the war in a POW camp. He comes home in 1945, thinner, quieter, and uninterested in fame. He receives the Distinguished Flying Cross, but the citation carefully omits that his achievement began as an illegal modification. He never seeks credit. He returns to Pittsburgh, marries his high school sweetheart, becomes a machinist, and never mentions the mirror sight to his children. In 1983, at a 91st Bomb Group reunion, another gunner who flew with Romano's system approaches him with tears in his eyes and says, "Because of those mirrors, I made it home. My kids exist because you couldn't accept lousy gun sights." Romano shrugs and says, "You would have done the same." But history knows better. Thousands faced the same problem. Only one rewired the solution. If stories like this make you see history differently, subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. We're telling the stories the textbooks missed, starting with the people who changed everything by breaking the rules.